Hi children, so ready again for your economics class 10th, 4th chapter, Globalization and the Indian economy. As usual, before we start with the chapter, we must know exactly what are we going to talk about and what are those difficult and the new terms which you need to understand before starting the chapter. Well, you see, because of the transport and communication, because of other technological advancements, the world has become a global village, they say. Every country is dependent on another country for the economy, for the well-being. If there is a war, they say, at my neighbor's place, I cannot be safe. So if the economy of my neighbor or somebody at a far off place is actually burning, I am sure to burn. Therefore, we need to understand what globalization is all about. The first term, globalization. Globalization is actually integrating the economies of the world, and that is, we can have this by the free flow of trade and capital in the country. That is, all the countries of the world should allow import and export without putting any barriers, and it should be seen that all countries are enthusiastic to trade with each other. If this happens, that is true globalization. Integrating, that is to say, if the other economy gets affected, then I am sure to get affected. Therefore, we have to work towards actually integrating all economies for the well-being of our own economy. Next is new economic policy. Well, earlier whatever was said in India became outdated, and an urgent need was felt for some new economic reforms which could be made in order to give a new economic policy to the country. This was required because of the changing scenario in the world, because of the globalization in the world, and because of the negative effect that we felt before we actually launched with the new economic policy. This was started in the year 1991, and when I talk about it in the chapter, I'll give you the details of the policy as such. Next is liberalization. Well, earlier the government felt that it should have control over all the major units in the country, because it felt that unless they do not have this in their hand, it could be a bad impact for the economy and also not good for the public. But slowly it realized that it needed to be actually liberal in its terms of expansion. Here the government actually started loosening its control over the industrial and other productional unit in order to have a new policy which they termed as liberalization. Next is privatization. Well, privatization is when the private sector of the country was allowed to grow. Wherever earlier everything was in the hand of the public sector, even the private sector was told to come and join hands to actually share this, and this is known as privatization. Next is MNC. Most of you already know, and I have explained it in one of the chapters earlier, that MNC is actually a multinational company. It's a company which owns or controls its hold in various parts of the world, that is in various countries. That is, it's doing its production, it's selling, it's doing marketing in so many countries of the world. That is a multinational company. And here, when we talk of the multinational company in the chapter, it's going to play a very, very important aspect as far as globalization is concerned. Next, trade barriers. Now, though we talk of globalization, we talk of the world as a global village, but sometimes in order to increase or decrease trade, as and when required by the economy of the country, the government has to interfere and it has to see that it imposes restrictions on the trade. This is called as trade barrier. In fact, this is levied when the government feels that a particular policy is going against the economy of one's own country. We talk about the rest of the terms and concept in the next clipping. They say that the economies of the world are revolving, meaning to say that the effects of the economies can be felt everywhere in the world around. This is because we have become interdependent on each other. Continuing with the terms and concepts that I was explaining, we come further to foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment. Well, the word, let's cut it, foreign, something which has come from abroad, direct, that is doing something by yourself, investment, money. So, when an investment is made by some another country in another country, that is foreign direct investment. When they do not involve the localites, when they do not involve the government of the country, and the investment is done directly by some other country in the land of someone else, is foreign direct investment. Next, foreign trade. Well, what is trading? Trading is exchanging of goods. So, here when it is foreign trade, whatever the exchange have been made, that is the purchase as well as sale, the total sum of the purchase and sale of the goods in the foreign countries is called as the foreign trade. Next is value of trade. Now, whatever you have exported or imported, what is the value in terms of money is actually the value of trade. We need to find out how much trade we have done in terms of money. That is the value of foreign trade or trade. Next is volume of trade. When value was for money, volume is for quantity. That is, what is the number of goods which have been exported or imported is actually the volume of trade. So, you see, they are both kind of interrelated to each other, the value of trade and the volume of trade. When the volume increases, the value will automatically increase, and when the value is more, obviously the volume of trade definitely increases. Next is fair globalization. Now, it is very, very easy to say that the world is a global village and we are trading with each other, importing and exporting, and globalization is actually required for all the economies of the world. But this globalization has to be fair, that is, it is supposed to have opportunities for all, that is, the benefits of the trade should be shared by all the countries. It should not be because of globalization, the rich countries of the world are benefiting and the poor countries are becoming dependent on them and they are not actually developing, because they are getting everything from the other country, actually giving what? giving a kind of booster to their economy, but themselves are lacking everywhere. That is not fair globalization. Fair globalization is when if you have actually started with a company or a production unit in that country, then you need to look after the labor and other manpower that you have employed in that country. This is fair globalization. Earn profit and share it with the rest of them. That is globalization, in fact, fair globalization. Now we actually start with the chapter in detail in the next clipping.